When you know your stuff, you don't have to sweat it. They have started with a great witness today, and I'm very proud of the defense. So today is day 24 in the Karen Reed retrial, and it is the first day of the defense's case. And they did start out with a pretty light witness because this is only his second time testifying. So he's only testified one time prior to this time, but I think he's doing a pretty good job. They actually started the morning with a directed verdict. I didn't think they was going to do that because they know how Auntie Bev is, and it was of course a no, but they did prove their point. They have not proven that there was a collision. The Commonwealth needed to prove that. We need to know that a collision happened and believe that to say she's guilty of this crime. Y'all have not proven that. That is what the majority of us are seeing. Court TV did a poll, and the poll was 59%. They have not done so. So I saw one comment that said, all the Commonwealth has proven is that snowing and John hit his head. That's all they proven. We don't know how, what happened. It ain't adding up. But she said no, of course, so. But of course, they do have to preserve the record, so that's why they did it, but it was still a waste of time. And so the first witness on the stand is Matt DiSogra, and he is a computer forensic expert, pretty much an accident reconstructionist. His education is solid, and he did want y'all to know he is licensed and he is still a practicing engineer, meaning he's in his craft. He's still doing his craft that he's on the stand testifying about. All right, great. Now, he was very calm, cool, and collected. They are still doing cross because Brennan really was not prepared for this man, and he thought that he was going to be able to make this man crumble, I guess. He is not. He is answering these questions like they is rolling out the tongue. And even the questions where he's like, I don't know if that's really what you was asking me, he'll answer the question and say, if that is what I understood the question to be, and then repeat the question. He is not like, well, did this and did. He's not combative at all. He is just answering the questions. So he was pretty much hired to kind of analyze, kind of like a peer review, I would say, the report that Shannon and Dr. Welcher did. And Brennan tried to minimize that. Don't do that. Now, he did say that the reports that Aperture provided, they did not report the time of triggers at the appropriate time. The triggers are being documented at the end of the trigger and not at the actually beginning of the trigger. So if the triggering event lasts for a whole 30 seconds, it's documented at the end of that 30 seconds versus the beginning of that 30 seconds. And that makes a time difference when the times are like, okay, they got to be neck and neck. Because the Commonwealth is stating that at the time of the triggering event where she hit John O'Keefe, that he was locking his phone. But if it's not the exact time, because you document it, because it is recorded at the end and not the beginning, the timing is off. And he did state that there is not a set way to kind of line up the times. So like the vehicle time, the watch time, the phone time. He said there's not a standard way to do that. And so in order to accurately do it, you have to do it all the possible different ways that there are, which is not what Aperture did. And that is why some of the timing is off. Like they are saying, oh, well, this time lines up. But if you didn't do all the possible ways to try and get to those numbers, it's why these numbers are off in certain places. Because some places the time makes sense, and that's the ones they need to make the most sense, and sometimes it don't, and that's the problem. It's not consistent across the board. This little math problem y'all did, it don't add up. Now, he did do some math calculation where he was stating that if when he does his calculation, the timestamp that the Aperture had, if it came out negative, that timing was off, and if it came out in a positive number, that the timing was pretty much probably accurate, which is how he knows that across the board it was not accurate, because across the board it should be a positive number, and if it was negative at any time, that means those times were not lined up correctly, and that's how he knew it was off. I think he's a pretty good witness to start with because it is the weekend. Like they couldn't bring in their bread and butter to immediately knock down the stuff that Dr. Welcher did. They brought kind of like an in-between, he's like the opener when you go to your concert to see your favorite singer. He's like the opening act. He came in to give us a little intro into the big stuff, which they're going to be ready to go on Monday. So I think he's doing pretty good so far. So we will see how the rest of this goes. I do think they'll be done with him before the end of the day. So I don't know if they have anybody else lined up, or if they're going to be like, we're on time and end early again. We're going to see. Y'all know how she is about that mess. But we'll see how that goes. And just like that, day 24 is a wrap in Karen Read retrial. So Brennan finished up his cross, and during his cross after lunch, he went in this little tangent, little rant, trying to make it seem like Matthew didn't know what he was doing. He was like, well, how did you get the data for this? Why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? And it was like, sir, the information I used was from the reports of the people you hired. I used the information they put in their reports. That's how I got that information, their reports. And then he busted out and tried to say that he didn't have the formula that they used to get the data. It just gave the energy he was trying to discredit him, but he did a very bad job at it, because the data that he used was in the reports from the people that they hired. So if their report is wrong, that's how they got that information. That means they're wrong, sir. He kind of, I would say, insulted the jury, because it kind of like, well, another engineer couldn't do the math or the formula to get the data that they got. So if another engineer who's qualified can't do it, how can the jury do it? That means they have to break stuff down into layman's terms. You cannot bring stuff to the presentation of the jury and they can't understand you. That's not how that works. If another engineer cannot understand the information that they need to be able to be presented, then the jury can't understand it. And you making them feel like they aren't smart enough to understand the information is absolutely a wash, because they need to be able to understand it. It needs to be broken down into the simplest of simplest terms. And if you're stating that another engineer can't understand it, they absolutely don't understand it. Make that make sense. That doesn't help you, sir. That makes you should never alienate your jury. You should always make your jury feel like, we are here for you. You are so important for this. We love and appreciate you. But making it seem like they couldn't understand something because they're not as qualified as that engineer on the stand, they don't think you think they're smart. That's not a good look. And then on redirect, AJ got up there and very, very clearly laid it out. Did you lie about your credentials? No. Did you change your resume? No. Have you done the education you said you've done? Yes. Have you got the certificates you said that you've gotten? Yes. Make it clear. I'm qualified to be here. Just because it's my second time don't mean nothing. I'm qualified to be here. You got to start somewhere. He's qualified. You don't like that. We know. We know, sir. We know you don't like that. And then he said, well, why did you change your report? Because they changed theirs. Right. That's the only reason I changed my report. Otherwise, the original report that I had would have stayed the same, because my report is based off of their report. They changed theirs, so I changed mine. That's how it works. Tit for tat. And then he very clearly said, it was the best part. So if your data is wrong, it's because their data is wrong, because you got the data from their report. He said, yes. Good job. Yeah. So if there is an actual issue and you want to try to make somebody look like they don't know what they're doing, it starts from the people you hired. It does. The people that you done paid all this money for, that done went and purchased the Lexus SUV and still didn't prove nothing to nobody. Yeah, those people. And then, of course, to be able to let the jury go, because they needed to do a voir dire, and they did a voir dire on Jonathan Dominguez, who is a friend of Michael Proctor's, and they've been friends since 6th grade. He was one of the people in that group chat where he was talking about Karen, and he shouldn't have been talking about Karen, and talking about the case in general when he should not have been talking about the case. So they had him come in. He explained their relationship, how long they've been friends. They still talk and communicate here, here and there. And he brought his own attorney. They didn't say what he did, but why did he have his own attorney? Did you receive the text messages? Because I don't believe there was like a bunch of responses from them back to Michael Proctor. Like they didn't do anything to make themselves look bad. They just received messages from their friend who made himself look bad. He grown. He got to be responsible for him. But anywho, he just verified that the numbers in the chat were all correct. Like they asked him to, at first they asked him to say their first name, but Auntie Belle was like, can we not do that? and can you just do like the last two numbers? So he did the last two numbers. It's like, this is somebody and this is somebody and this is somebody. So he verified the numbers and he said, yes, all of those numbers are correct. And then that was pretty much it. He got off the stand. And then Yannetti argued the fact that they should be able to bring these messages in because they state of mind that Michael Proctor was in. You know, he's, oh, well, the owner of the home's, you know, police, he's not going to get any slack and da-da-da. Like the things that he was saying, it went to mindset, and that is what they wanted to bring the verification of that information in. He said that they have more verification on this information of cell phone data than they do on any other case anybody else has ever presented, because he's been able to verify the information, and they have more than one source who has verified the information, so it should be able to be brought in. And then, of course, Brennan got up and was like, no, it shouldn't be allowed in, blah, 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 what he always do. And then he did state that, oh, well, if they want to make sure that the information is accurate or bring that in, they need to call Proctor to the stand. Yannetti didn't like that. He didn't like that. He said, I shouldn't have to bring him to the stand because y'all didn't bring your lead investigator to the stand, because it's not common. Who don't bring the lead investigator? Fired, because they shouldn't be getting fired. They normally be done retired. That's normally what happened. When they done some shenanigans, they get retired before they get fired, so they can just be like, oh, I'm retired. Yeah, he didn't got fired, so that's why y'all didn't bring him to the stand. But he shouldn't have, the defense shouldn't have to be forced to bring Proctor to the stand so that they can play your game. I don't want him to the stand. I want this information in through his friends, gonna bring their own attorneys up here to verify cell phone numbers. Yeah, you can't make them bring somebody to the stand because you don't want to bring them on your case. No, we playing our game, not your game. So that was that. And then there was another motion that they had, but they briefly went over, and she said we'll talk about it on Monday. So that was the end of day 24 in the trial and day 1 of the defense's case. And I think we're off to a pretty good start. I am ready for the next week's going to be top tier. I'm ready.